There is something almost sinful about the way she moves through a room, like poured honey catching golden light, every curve of her silhouette a deliberate provocation against the ordinary. Her hips sway with the slow, devastating confidence of a woman who knows exactly what those eyes do to a man's pulse, what that full lower lip does to his restraint when she bites it just slightly while thinking. The slit in her emerald gown whispers secrets against thighs that could make a saint forget his prayers, and when she turns, the bare expanse of her back gleams like polished obsidian under chandelier fire. She is danger wrapped in silk. She is the storm you walk into with your eyes wide open, begging to be ruined. And tonight Sol will learn her name, or rather, the name she has chosen to wear like a weapon. 2 years ago, the world knew her as Adiz Okonkwo, the 22-year-old prodigy from Lagos who had set the African fashion scene ablaze with collections that made Parisian editors weep into their champagne flutes. Her designs were architecture and poetry stitched together, bold geometric prints married to liquid draping that made every woman who wore them feel like a goddess stepping off a pedestal and into the street. Magazines called her the future. Investors called her a gold mine. And one particular man in Seoul called her his. His name was Park Junaseo, 30 years old, built like a marble sculpture that some reckless artist had decided to ink with sprawling tattoos of serpents and chrysanthemums across both forearms, his biceps, the thick column of his neck. He owned the Junaseo house, a fashion empire that dressed K-pop idols and chaebol wives alike. And when he first saw Adiz's graduate collection at a showcase in Milan, something primal and possessive ignited behind his dark, calculating eyes. He offered her a partnership. He offered her the world. And she, brilliant and hungry and trusting, took his hand. What followed was 18 months of creative euphoria. Adiz designed, Junaseo produced, and together they built a capsule line that sold out in 47 minutes flat. The fashion world watched in awe as this Nigerian visionary and this Korean mogul created something neither could have achieved alone. But behind closed doors, in the glass-walled offices overlooking the Han River, the dynamic was rotting from the inside. Junaseo began rewriting her name off press releases. He began introducing her collections as his own creative direction. He whispered to investors that she was merely a talented sketch artist he had discovered, a muse, not a mind. And Adiz, isolated in a foreign country, her visa tied to his company, her contracts written in Korean she could barely parse, felt the walls closing in like a corset laced too tight by cruel hands. The night everything shattered was the Seoul Fashion Week Gala in autumn of 2024. Adiz had spent 4 months crafting a collection she called Ori, meaning head, meaning destiny, meaning the crown of one's spirit. 42 looks, hand-beaded, hand-dyed with indigo techniques she had learned from her grandmother in ABA. Each piece was a love letter to Yoruba cosmology translated into modern silhouettes. She walked into that gala expecting to take her bow, to finally stand beside Junaseo as an equal partner and announce the next chapter of their collaboration. Instead, she walked into an execution. Junaseo took the stage alone. He presented Ori as the culmination of his personal artistic journey. When a journalist asked about the Nigerian influences, he laughed, a smooth, rehearsed sound, and said he had hired local artisans for the beadwork. Local artisans. As if Adiz were a pair of anonymous hands stitching in a back room. She stood in the audience in a dress she had made herself, watching the man she had trusted, the man whose tattooed fingers had traced her spine in the small hours and whispered promises against her skin, erase her existence in real time before 800 guests and 40 million live stream viewers. She confronted him backstage. The argument was volcanic. She screamed in English, he responded in cold, clipped Korean, and then in English just cruel enough for her to understand every syllable. He told her she was replaceable. He told her no one in this industry would believe a 22-year-old African girl over him. He told her the contracts she had signed, the ones his lawyers had drafted in language she could not fully comprehend, gave him ownership of every sketch, every pattern, every thread. And then, with the casual brutality of a man discarding a garment he had grown bored of, he had security escort her out through the service entrance, into the rain, into the Seoul night, into nothing. The CCTV footage leaked 3 weeks later. Someone, perhaps a guilt-ridden security guard, perhaps a rival with a grudge, uploaded 17 minutes of backstage video to a Korean forum. It showed Adiz being physically guided out by two large men while Junaseo watched from a doorway, arms crossed, tattoos flexing as he checked his phone. It showed her stumbling in heels on wet pavement. It showed her sitting on a curb outside the venue, mascara running, phone pressed to her ear, clearly calling someone who was not answering. The footage went viral. For approximately 72 hours, the internet raged. Hashtags trended. Think pieces were written. And then, with the terrifying efficiency of a man who owned media connections 3 layers deep, the footage was scrubbed. Every platform, every mirror, every screenshot, gone. As if it had never existed. As if she had never existed. Her social media accounts were deactivated. Not by her. Her Instagram, where she had documented every stitch of Ori, every sleepless night in the studio, every joyful fitting with models who told her she was a genius, vanished overnight. Her website returned a 404 error. Her name was removed from the Seoul Fashion Week archives. The fashion databases that had listed her as a collaborator were quietly edited. It was a digital assassination so thorough, so surgical, that within a month, searching Adiz Okonkwo returned nothing but a handful of confused tweets asking if she was real or an urban legend. And then she disappeared. Truly disappeared. Her landlord in Itaewon reported her lease abandoned. Her phone number was disconnected. The Nigerian embassy confirmed she had not renewed her visa. No flight records showed her leaving Incheon Airport. No shipping manifest listed her belongings returning to Lagos. She simply evaporated from the surface of the earth, and the internet, that ravenous beast that feeds on mystery, went absolutely feral. For 2 years, the theories multiplied like bacteria in a petri dish. Reddit threads with thousands of comments speculated she had been silenced. YouTube channels with dramatic thumbnails and breathless narration claimed she was living under witness protection in Canada. A Korean tabloid printed a story, later retracted, suggesting she had been seen working in a textile factory in Busan under a false name. TikTok sleuths analyzed every frame of the leaked CCTV, zooming into reflections in windows, claiming to spot her in crowds in London, in Accra, in Sao Paulo. A true crime podcast dedicated an entire 6-episode season to her vanishing. The hashtag #WhereIsAdiz accumulated over 200 million views. And through it all, Park Jun-seo continued to ascend. His brand launched in New York. He dated an actress. He gave interviews where he spoke of creative solitude and the burden of genius. He never once mentioned her name. Not once. Until tonight. The Seoul Grand Hotel Ballroom is dripping in crystal and champagne light. It is the annual Métier Gala, the single most important fundraising event in Korean fashion, where designers, buyers, editors, and celebrities collide in a beautiful, backstabbing ecosystem of silk and ambition. Park Jun-seo is the guest of honor. He will receive the Visionary Award. He will give a speech. He will smile his sculpted, tattooed smile for the cameras and accept applause for a career built on the bones of a woman the world forgot. And into this glittering shark tank walks a woman no one recognizes. She calls herself Zara Nkemalu. Her passport is Nigerian but issued from a different city. Her accent is the same warm Lagos lilt, but her story is different. She tells the curious editors who approach her, an independent designer based in Lisbon who has just launched her first collection and is seeking manufacturing partnerships in Asia. Her hair is cropped close to her skull, a dramatic departure from the long braids Adiz once wore. Her cheekbones are the same impossible architecture, but she has lost the softness of 22. At 24, her face is all planes and angles, devastating and severe, like a blade wrapped in velvet. Her skin glows with the deep, luminous richness of polished mahogany, and when she moves, the way the fabric of her self-designed gown pools and catches around her long legs sends a visible ripple of attention through every man within a 10-meter radius. She is not here to network. She is not here to find a manufacturer. She is here because Park Jun-seo is here. She is here because for 2 years, in a tiny apartment in Lisbon, she stitched and planned and rebuilt herself thread by thread, and tonight, She will look into the eyes of the man who destroyed her and watch him realize that the ghost he buried is standing in his ballroom wearing a smile sharp enough to draw blood. She spots him across the room immediately. He is impossible to miss. Junicio stands near the bar, a glass of whiskey in one hand, the other resting on the hip of a model who is laughing at something he has murmured. His black dress shirt is unbuttoned one notch too low, revealing the edge of a serpent tattoo that coils from his collarbone down beneath the fabric. His forearms, exposed by rolled sleeves, are canvases of ink, dragons and geometric patterns and Korean script that she once traced with her fingertips in the blue hours of the morning, when the world was quiet and he was tender, and she was foolish enough to believe tenderness was truth. His jaw is sharp, his shoulders broad enough to block out the chandelier light, and there is a physical magnetism to him that she hates, that she has always hated, the way his body commands space like a gravitational force that pulls lesser objects into orbit whether they wish to go or not. She watches him for 11 minutes. She counts. She needs him to feel her gaze before he sees her face. She needs the hair on the back of his neck to rise, that animal instinct that tells a predator something has changed in the wind. And at minute 12 he turns. His eyes find hers across the crowded ballroom, and she watches the confusion bloom. He does not recognize her. Of course he does not. The cropped hair, the different styling, the 2 years of hunger and rage that have sharpened her features into something harder, fiercer. But something in the way she holds his gaze, the way she tilts her chin just slightly, the way her lips curve into a smile that is all teeth and no warmth, makes his whiskey glass pause halfway to his mouth. He frowns. He looks away. He looks back. She is still watching, still smiling that terrible, beautiful smile. He excuses himself from the model. He crosses the ballroom floor with the slow, deliberate stride of a man approaching something he cannot quite identify but feels compelled to investigate. The crowd parts for him. It always does. He stops 3 feet from Zara, close enough to smell her perfume. Something smoky and floral that tugs at a memory he cannot place, and he extends his hand. Park Junicio, he says, and his voice is exactly as she remembers, low and textured like gravel wrapped in silk. And you are Zaran Kemalu, she replies, and she takes his hand. His grip is warm, firm, his tattooed fingers wrapping around hers, and she feels the old electricity, the traitorous spark, and she crushes it beneath 2 years of frozen fury. She does not release his hand immediately. She holds it 1 second longer than professional courtesy demands, watching his pupils dilate just slightly, watching his throat work as he swallows. Pleasure, she thinks. Let him feel the pull. Let him wonder why this stranger's touch sends a current up his wrist that feels like déjà vu. Let him be confused. Confusion is the first thread she will pull. They talk. She is charming, witty, devastatingly intelligent, and she watches him fall into the rhythm of her conversation the way he once fell into the rhythm of her designs, seduced by the architecture of her mind before he ever touched the architecture of her body. He laughs at her jokes. He leans closer. His eyes drop to her mouth when she speaks, that involuntary gravity, and she lets him look. She lets him want. She is building a snare out of his own desire, and he is walking into it with the blind confidence of a man who has never been told no by a woman who meant it. The evening unfolds like a chess match played in whispers and champagne. She positions herself in his orbit without appearing to try. She complements his work with specific, technical knowledge that makes him pause and reassess her. She mentions a stitching technique from West Africa that makes his eyes narrow with recognition, with hunger, because he knows that technique. He has seen it before in a collection he presented as his own. But she says it casually, as if it is common knowledge, and he cannot call her out without exposing his theft. She has him in a vice and he does not yet know he is bleeding. At midnight, the Visionary Award ceremony begins. Junicio takes the stage. He speaks of inspiration, of cross-cultural dialogue, of the beautiful accident of discovering talent in unexpected places. Adiz, watching from the 3rd row in her emerald gown, feels each word land like a needle pushed slowly under her skin. But she does not flinch. She applauds with the rest of the room. She smiles. And when he steps off the stage to thunderous applause, she is the first person in his path, holding 2 glasses of champagne, and she says, "Congratulations, Mr. Park. Your speech was almost as moving as your Autumn 24 collection. The one with the Yoruba beadwork. The one you called a personal journey." The color drains from his face so completely that for a moment she thinks he might faint. His jaw tightens. The tattoos on his neck seem to writhe as the muscles beneath them clench. He takes the champagne glass from her hand with fingers that are not quite steady, and he says very quietly, "I do not know what you are implying, Ms. Nkemelu." "I am not implying anything," she replies, and her voice is honey over a razor. "I am simply admiring your work. All of it. Every stitch. Every borrowed stitch." She walks away before he can respond, her hips swaying with that slow, devastating rhythm, the slit in her gown revealing a flash of thigh with each step, and she feels his eyes on her back like a physical weight, like branded heat. She does not look back. She does not need to. She knows exactly what his face looks like right now. She has rehearsed this moment in 1,000 variations across 2 years of sleepless Lisbon nights, and the reality is sweeter than any fantasy. The weeks that follow are a masterclass in psychological warfare dressed in couture. Zara Nkemelu becomes a fixture in Seoul's fashion scene. She attends every event June SEO attends. She secures a small studio in Seongsadong and begins producing pieces that are unmistakably, undeniably brilliant, pieces that carry the same DNA as Ori but evolved, matured, sharpened by suffering into something even more extraordinary. Editors who once ignored Adiz now clamor for interviews with Zara. Buyers place orders. The whispers begin. Who is this woman? Where did she come from? Why does her work feel so hauntingly familiar? And June SEO watches. He watches from across rooms, from behind sunglasses, from the passenger seat of his black sedan parked outside her studio at 2 in the morning. He is obsessed and he cannot explain why. There is something about Zara that burrows into his subconscious like a splinter, something in the cadence of her laughter, the way she pins fabric between her teeth while she works, the particular angle at which she tilts her head when she is thinking. He begins to dream in indigo. He begins to wake with her name on his lips, though the name is wrong, though the name is Zara and not the other name, the buried name, the name he has spent 2 years ensuring no one speaks aloud. If this story has your heart hammering and your fingers itching to know what happens when the mask finally slips, do me the kindness of smashing that like button and subscribing to AMBW Romance Stories right now, because what comes next will leave you absolutely breathless, and you will want to be here when it drops. Share this with someone who loves a woman who refuses to stay buried. Drop a comment and tell me, would you forgive or would you destroy? I read every single one. The confrontation, when it comes, is not in a ballroom. It is not in front of cameras or crowds. It is in her studio, at 11 at night, during a thunderstorm that turns Seoul into a watercolor of neon and rain. He appears at her door unannounced, soaked, his white shirt translucent and clinging to the broad landscape of his chest, the tattoos on his arms vivid and dark against wet skin. His hair is plastered to his forehead. He looks wrecked. He looks like a man who has not slept in days. "I know who you are," he says, and his voice is raw, stripped of its usual polished veneer. "I have known for 3 weeks. The stitching pattern on your left seam. The way you knot thread. The indigo. It is you, Adiz." She stands in the doorway in an oversized shirt and nothing else visible, her legs bare and long, her cropped hair damp from the shower, water still beating on her collarbones. She looks at him for a long, silent moment. Then she steps aside and lets him in. They do not touch. Not yet. They stand on opposite ends of her studio, surrounded by bolts of fabric and pinned sketches and the smell of dye and rain. And they talk. He talks first. He talks for an hour. He talks about guilt, about ambition, about the machinery of the industry that told him a young African woman's genius was only valuable if filtered through his name. He talks about the nights he could not sleep, about the face he saw in every crowd, about the footage he paid to erase and the way it played behind his eyelids every time he closed his eyes. He does not ask for forgiveness. He is not that arrogant. Not anymore. And she talks. She tells him about the curb in the rain, about the phone calls no one answered, about the 3 weeks she spent in a hostel in Incheon with $40 and no visa, sleeping in 4-hour shifts because she was terrified of being found. about the cargo ship to Lisbon, about the year she spent sewing alterations for a Portuguese tailor who paid her under the table and called her querida and never asked why she flinched at loud voices, about the night she finally picked up a needle and designed something for herself, not for him, not for a brand, but for the woman she was rebuilding from ash. When she finishes speaking, the silence between them is so thick it has texture, has weight, has the electric charge of the storm still rolling overhead. He crosses the studio floor in 4 strides. He stops inches from her. She can feel the heat radiating off his soaked body, can smell rain and cedar and the faint metallic tang of the dye on his fingers. His hand rises, slowly, as if approaching a wild animal, and his tattooed fingertips brush the line of her jaw. She does not pull away. She does not lean in. She simply lets his touch exist, a question without an answer, a bridge neither of them has agreed to cross. I will not disappear again, she whispers, and I will not be silent, and I will not be your secret, your shame, your erased footnote. If you want to make this right, you will do it in the light, in front of everyone, with my name in your mouth where it belongs. He nods. Once. His jaw works. His hand drops to his side. And then, because the tension between them has become a living thing, a coiled wire humming with 2 years of grief and rage and the stubborn, irrational, infuriating ghost of desire that neither of them can fully kill, he steps back. He buttons his shirt with shaking fingers. He walks to the door. He pauses. Tomorrow, he says, without turning around, I am calling a press conference. I will tell them everything. Ori was yours. It was always yours. And I will say your name. Adiz. I will say it until the whole world hears it. He leaves. The door closes. The storm breaks open overhead, rain hammering the windows like applause, and Adiz Okonkwo Zarankemelu, the ghost, the legend, the woman who was left for dead in the gutters of the fashion world, sinks to the floor of her studio and weeps. Not from sadness. From the sheer, overwhelming, almost unbearable relief of being seen, of being named, of existing again in a world that tried to unmake her. The press conference is broadcast live. 14 million viewers. Junisio stands at a podium in the Junisio House headquarters, and with the steady, deliberate cadence of a man reading his own indictment, he tells the truth. All of it. The theft, the erasure, the contracts, the CCTV, the exile. He names her. Adiz Okonkwo. He says it 7 times. He announces the immediate transfer of all Ori intellectual property to its rightful creator. He announces his resignation as creative director. He announces a fund for emerging designers from underrepresented backgrounds, seeded with his personal fortune. The fashion world detonates. Social media ignites. The hashtags that once asked where is Adiz now trend with her name in triumph. And she watches from her studio, on a small laptop, with a cup of cold coffee and ink-stained fingers, and she allows herself to smile. A real smile. Not the razor smile. Not the weapon smile. A soft, exhausted, victorious smile that reaches her eyes and makes her look, for the first time in 2 years, like the 24-year-old woman she is, brilliant and scarred and unbreakable. 3 months later, Adiz Okonkwo presents her first collection under her own name at Seoul Fashion Week. The front row is packed. The live stream peaks at 31 million viewers. She takes her bow in a simple black dress, her cropped hair gleaming, her posture regal, and the standing ovation lasts 4 minutes and 12 seconds. She does not cry. She has cried enough. She simply stands in the light and lets it find her. Every angle, every scar, every glorious, hard-won inch of her. And in the back of the room, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, tattoos visible beneath rolled sleeves, jaw tight with an emotion he will not name, Park Junisio watches. He does not approach. He does not deserve to approach. Not yet, perhaps not ever. But he is there, bearing witness, carrying the weight of what he did and what she survived. And if his eyes are bright, if his throat works around something he cannot swallow, that is his burden to bear in silence. But later, much later, when the after-party has thinned and the champagne has gone warm and the city hums its low electric lullaby, she finds him on the rooftop terrace of the venue, alone, staring at the Han River. She stands beside him. Their shoulders do not touch. The distance between them is 3 inches and 2 years and a lifetime of trust that must be rebuilt stitch by painstaking stitch. You came, she says. You asked me to, he replies. And then, quieter, I will always come. Even if it is only to watch from the back. Even if it is only to carry the weight. You asked and I came. She turns her head. He turns his. Their faces are close enough that she can see the individual lines of ink on his neck. The small scar above his eyebrow she once kissed in a sunlit apartment that no longer exists. His gaze drops to her mouth. Hers drops to his. The air between them thickens, charges, becomes almost liquid with the gravity of everything unsaid. Everything unforgiven. Everything that might, in some distant and uncertain future, become something new. She does not kiss him. Not tonight. Tonight, she simply reaches out and takes his hand, his tattooed, trembling hand, and holds it for 3 seconds. 4, 5. And then she releases it, turns and walks back toward the light, toward the music, toward the life she has clawed back from the void with her own 2 hands and her own magnificent, indomitable mind. He watches her go. He watches the way the city light catches the curve of her shoulder, the confident swing of her stride, the absolute, unshakable sovereignty of a woman who has walked through fire and emerged not unburned, but reforged. And he thinks, not for the first time, that she is the most beautiful thing he has ever seen, and the most terrifying, and the only one who ever mattered. The river flows, the city breathes, and somewhere in Seoul, a ghost becomes a woman again, and a woman becomes a legend, and the story, the real story, the one no one could erase or overwrite or bury in a service entrance in the rain, finally belongs to the person who lived it. Her name is Adiz Okonkwo. Remember it. Say it. Write it down. Because she is not going anywhere. Not ever again. If the story set something on fire in your chest, if you felt every single stitch of her journey in your bones, then you already know what to do. Hit that subscribe button on AMBW Romance Stories. Ring the bell so you never miss a single upload, and share this video with every person in your life who needs to hear that no one gets to write your ending but you. Leave a comment below and tell me your favorite moment. Was it the rooftop? The press conference? The first time she walked into that ballroom and made him feel small? I want to hear from you. Every comment, every share, every like tells the algorithm that stories like this matter. That women like Adiz deserve to be seen. And it helps this channel grow, so I can keep bringing you these narratives that grip your soul and refuse to let go. You are not just a viewer. You are part of this story now. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching AMBW Romance Stories. You are loved. You are seen. And your story is not over. Not by a long shot. Subscribe, share, comment, and until tomorrow, keep walking through the fire. Beautiful. The other side is worth every single burn. This is AMBW Romance Stories, signing off. Hit subscribe. I will be waiting for you in the next chapter. Always the next day.